Hi. Your National Executive Committee met at the end of last week in order to take very important decisions about our national campaign going forward. The decisions that we took were based on listening very carefully to the feedback we got from our summer of consultation. And can I start by thanking all of you who were involved in that consultation. It was the largest, most in-depth the union has ever held, and we managed to get into 80% of the union's branches, covering well over 200,000 members in order to discuss the way forward with you. As a result of those discussions, I think we're very clear about the way forward. First of all, I think we all agree in the union that we cannot give up. The issue around pay restraint, cuts in living standards, threats to pensions, which will see us again have to pay more in the spring of next year, cuts, privatisations, office closures, changes to terms and conditions, none of these have gone away. In fact, for many people, they've got worse over the period. And therefore our consultation really was asking the question, can we do more to put more pressure on the government and your particular employer to get them to meet us in a meaningful way to try and achieve some concessions? And as a result, we reached some important conclusions. The first one is that everyone agrees that the most effective way of trying to force the government to change public sector policy, particularly on pay and pensions, is to have effective coordinated action across the public sector. And therefore we've reaffirmed that we're going to make even bigger efforts via the TUC and by talking directly to public sector unions ourselves to try and get that coordinated action. Now, of course, the problem with such action is we all know it's the most effective thing we can do, but we can't make decisions on behalf of other unions. So there's no shortcut to the painstaking discussions and dialogue that we will need to undertake. However, what we are going to do is, in addition to talking to the TUC, we are going to make new efforts with those unions who have recently announced industrial action this autumn. They're the teaching unions, the higher education unions, NAPO in the probation service. We're also seeing action in the fire service. And therefore we're going to start immediately by having individual discussions with all of the unions in those sectors to see if it's possible to have some coordinated action. But if that's all we decided, then clearly we'd be making the mistake of putting all our eggs in one basket. So the strategy that we have agreed at the NEC is to say that even though we're going to try and get coordinated action, it's important that we can also have sustainable action within our own membership to put pressure on our own employers. And the conclusion we reached there was that isolated one-day strikes in and of themselves are not enough. We've already had 3 days of action across most parts of the union this year, and we've not managed to get the negotiations that we need. And therefore we're now going to explore in great depth, looking at the feedback you gave us about having targeted, more sustained action in different groups in the union and in different branches. And that is going to mean, by definition, it will be longer term action than just one-day strikes. And therefore, in order to fund this, the executive has agreed that we are going to launch a voluntary national levy across the whole of the union with a view to raising a war chest to allow us to fund targeted strike action, designed to hit the employer where it hurts and designed to supplement any further national action that we plan to call. And therefore, over the next few weeks, the Disputes Committee, working on behalf of the NEC, will be back in discussion with those branches who've indicated that they could take targeted action, talking to groups directly about the issues in groups that we can build pressure. For example, demanding more staff, against closures, against privatisation, as we've seen in the last few days with our magnificent strike to stop shared services in parts of the civil service. So that's the next phase, building for coordinated action, but also exploring the possibility of targeted action by raising a voluntary levy. And in order to supplement that, finally the executives agreed that we need to up our game in terms of our political campaigning. We've done some fantastic political campaigning on a national level, but now we want to dig down further. We want to start taking targeted political campaign action against individual MPs, be they in the coalition government, be they in marginal seats, in a way that those constituency MPs feel real pressure from our members linked to our national demands. By doing that, targeted political campaigning, targeted strike action funded by a levy, national action or coordinated action with other unions will clearly put more pressure, not just on the government, but importantly on your employer, in order to try and get demands on group issues as well as on national issues. That's a big task ahead of us, but we're very confident that the message we got from members and reps over the summer is we've got to do all we can, means we can deliver this action. We're going to take our time planning it very carefully. It's likely to take a number of weeks and months in order to pull it all together, but I want to assure you that your National Executive Committee will stop at nothing to ensure that the action that we put in place is an effective use of our members' preparedness to take industrial action to maximise the pressure on the employer. Finally, on behalf of the Executive, whilst all of these plans are now being developed, we are urging people to involve themselves in the People's Assembly Day of Action on November the 5th. This is an opportunity for us to link up with community groups, campaigning organisations and other trade unions under the banner of the People's Assembly to try and support whatever local activities we can. There will be information on our website that will show you how you can contact your local People's Assembly, and there'll be a range of activities across the UK in the mornings, lunchtime and after work, ranging from protests and demonstrations to one-off campaign activities to highlight the effects of austerity and why the government needs to change course. Do get involved on November the 5th. Do get involved in any further consultations that we undertake, but most importantly, keep the message going to your members locally that there is so much at stake. We have to continue to fight on, and that fight is now going to take a more effective, targeted approach to force the government to get into talks. Thanks very much.